I dislike children. Don't get me wrong, they're fun to chew on when you have nothing else in the fridge to eat. But waiting for them to ripen is the worst 6 years of your life. The little ones are the toughest to handle. They give me the willies. Kids just don't scare as easily these days, which makes it impossible for a fella like me to get things done when I really need to. Sorry, I should probably stop and make introductions. My name is FANE, and I'm a fae. I live off of fear and mischief. Anyways, this is my story, and I figured if I want to get all the facts straight, I'd best tell it myself, rather than let some human get the fable all mixed up. This all happened many Christmases ago, back when the world was not quite as hectic as it is now. Some called it 2018. I've never been too good at keeping track of time, being immortal and all, so I just called the year Phil. Phil started off great, with lots of tricks and mischief to be had up country with my family. The Fayborns, or Johansons if you know us, who all enjoy midsummer and the solstice a little more than they should, by drinking too much rainbow tea and hunting unicorns. The horn is the best part to eat, especially with barbecue sauce. But the real problem started around the end of Phil, when we all decided to go up to the North Pole and see Uncle Nick. Yes, that fat guy in the red suit is my uncle. And no, he is not as jolly as you would expect. He had just finished watching his elf slaves finish up the last bit of toys for his child cult, when he pulled me aside and asked me, "Vane, when are you going to stop messing around and get your own horns? Or wings, or, something." Look, I know it's unusual for a fae my age to still not be in heaven, or, the other place. Or at least have my very own worshippers. But I'm happy where I'm at in life, I told him. "You mean living in your parents' basement?" Nick commented. "It's only been for the past 600 years. He harumphed and said, "I wouldn't be pushing this issue, but there's something else I need to tell you. Your Granny Cramps is coming, and they want to talk inheritances." I had just finished eating a reindeer leg, and my stomach was suddenly turning into knots. Granny Cramps was much more strict than Nick, and they were mean. Like, really, really mean. "Why are they coming here? I thought you hated each other." "It's because he lost a bet," a voice boomed from the door. Cramps was there, angry as a beehive and taller than 3 coconut trees. "A bet? Wait, about me?" I asked nervously. Betting around here was no small thing. Curses came attached with any gambling because we have magic, and we get bored just pestering humans, so sometimes we play tricks on each other. When I saw the sparkle in Cramp's eye, I knew they had something delightfully wicked in mind for me. "Nick was sure by now you'd have earned your own wings. I said you'd be halfway towards horns. And yet, instead here you sit, lazy as a frog with no hop. You're a bee with no buzz, Fane. You need to get your act together." "Cramps, you don't understand. It's harder to be a fae these days than ever before." "I think you just don't want to put in the work. Which is why we agreed, if we both failed this bet, you would be cursed by Christmas." A curse is always bad, and Cramp's curses are the worst. "Fane, if you don't bring us a child by Christmas, you will be bound to the human world for the rest of your days," Nick explained. "Wait, no, not a kid. I can't go after a kid. I'm scared of kids," I lamented. "Exactly why you need to prove to us that you can do this," Cramp said. "Until you bring us a bona fide kid, you aren't allowed back. So, I suggest you get started. The clock is ticking," Nick added. I was doing my best to try and not look terrified in front of them, but the truth is, I'm scared stiff. Christmas was only 12 days away, and now they were asking me to go out and find a kid, take them from their parents, and bring them back here. It was like asking an orc to go shop for a mace and giving them only an hour to choose. Totally unfair. I kept thinking about what would happen if I didn't listen to them, though. Stuck in the human world forever? I knew a halfling that had happened to before. His name was Pan. He was so ashamed of himself, he changed his name to Pete. Kept chasing shadows all day until one day he just flew away and never came back. I think pirates were involved. They hate fairies. And Pete was told he would need to stop chasing shadows, or else he would wind up stuck on an island with pirates. I didn't want to wind up like Pete, so I immediately started asking around the house where I could go find a kid. Do they sell them in the store? The elves told me they came from houses. The reindeer claimed it was a European thing, and Aunt Lucy said that most kids would run and hide if they saw me anyway. What you need is a disguise. Otherwise, your Christmas will be very unhappy indeed, Lucy told me as she took me to her wardrobe. She paused and patted her lion as we entered, before showing me her most bewitching clothes. These are filled with magic to hide you in the human world. Try one on, see if you think it suits you. Most of the outfits looked absolutely ridiculous, ranging from a clown costume to a superhero suit. Are you sure this is completely necessary? I asked as I put one on I could actually fit into. It was bright red with a scraggly beard that reminded me of Uncle Nick, except my skin was nearly lime green. It made me look like an overripe banana with marshmallows on top. I think it suits the assignment, she commented as I adjusted the clothes. I just don't understand why I have to do this. Can you just give me some of your devil voodoo magic, Aunt Lucy? I asked her as we left the wardrobe. The lion snarled at me, and Lucy had to turn it back to stone before remarking, I hate to tell you this, nephew, but the others are right. You can't just shirk responsibility. The rest of us are out here doing hell's work, and you're just making us look bad. I mean, we already are bad, but you know what I mean, Lucy said, as she pushed me out into the cold. Now go out, snatch a kid, and make us proud, she shouted. It felt like my wings were going to freeze off, making me wonder how I was going to pee, especially wearing this stupid suit. And now I had to travel all the way to the Arctic Circle to wherever the hell kids were at. I called an Uber to make things easier, and posted a listing on Craigslist. I figured, since they didn't say I couldn't make things easier for myself, it wouldn't hurt to give it a try. Seeking one child, medium-sized, for a sacrificing ritual before holiday season. Must be potty trained. That should do the trick, I thought as I sat back and waited. Surprisingly, by the time I made it to the city where Lucy told me the best kids were to capture, I hadn't gotten a single response. Guess I have to do things the old-fashioned way, I said to myself, as I paid the driver in fake coins and made my way towards the center of town. A few humans gave me odd looks as I walked down the chilly road, and it made me wonder if my costume wasn't working. But then, as I was distracted by a delivery truck, I nearly ran into the owner of what looked like a consignment store. Oh, it's about time you finally showed up, he snapped. I'm sorry, is there a problem? I asked. I called the Santa agency 3 hours ago. You're late, and I have kids lined up to sit on your lap, he said. I peered inside the department store window and saw the snot-nosed brats all staring at me, wide-eyed and confused, and I realized he thought I was there to pretend to be my uncle. What a great opportunity to find a kid. I couldn't have been luckier, to be honest. Yes, sorry. I can begin right away, I told him, as he checked me out and commented, Do you have a skin condition? I'm Republican, I explained. He nodded in understanding. Then he guided me inside to the big throne, where I was expected to sit. I glanced at the line of children. It felt like I was at an all-you-can-eat buffet. Which one to choose? The first kid eagerly jumped onto my lap. Yo, I said, feeling like I was talking to a dog. How do you talk to human kids anyway? You're not the real Santa, are you? He asked with a whiny voice. Well, no, but that's okay. The real one's a prick. What? No, Santa's amazing. Yeah, what do you know, kid? If it wasn't for Santa, I wouldn't be dealing with this crap. Don't talk about Santa that way, he screamed and punched me in the stomach. The department store manager gave me an ugly stare. I was doing my best not to crumple over in pain or cry my eyes out. I had to play it safe or I could lose my gig. And these kids were worse than wild animals. Why can't kids be more like snakes? Or squirrels? No, scratch that. Squirrels are worse. The remainder of the day was more of the same. Kids were just complaining to me about their wish list for Uncle Nick. Not a single one was interested in being kidnapped. It was frustrating. And one parent filed a restraining order on me, whatever that is. When it was all said and done, I felt like I had accomplished nothing. I need a smoke of pixie dust, I said to myself, as I snuck out the back and lit a roll in the alleyway. As I leaned against the wall, I thought I heard the most peculiar sound. It sounded like someone squeaking and sniffling. I walked about, trying to find where it was coming from, and saw a small young girl crouched in the alley and looking sad. I was thinking she was probably crying. "What's wrong with you? Parents died?" I asked. "I wish," she sniffled. "Why not kill them?" I asked. "'Cause I ran away," she shouted, looking up at me. She didn't seem scared, but she didn't look dangerous either. "Yes, that does make assassination attempts harder," I agreed. I looked at her ragged clothes and messed up hair, a bit surprised by how malnourished she looked. "You don't happen to have any diseases, do you?" I took a few steps back. It would be one thing to be stuck in the human world forever. Even worse if I was going to die from a runny nose. "Got my measles shot last week. I'm fine," she insisted. Then she took a harder look at me and commented, "You aren't like the normal Santa, are you?" "What was your first clue?" "Well, for one thing, you're green. And you aren't fat enough," she snapped back. "Listen, kid, I just got the gig. Besides, who are you to lecture anyone, Miss Runaway?" I snarled. "I have a name. It's Isabella," she shouted at me. It was starting to rain, so I told her we could go over to the diner to talk. "I'm not supposed to talk to strangers," she muttered. I ignored the obvious that we'd just been talking for a good 20 minutes, and instead introduced myself. "I'm FANE. Now we aren't strangers anymore, are we?" About 15 minutes after that, Isabella was on her third helping of pie, as I tried to figure out how I was going to get her to the North Pole. It was starting to get colder outside, and the rain was becoming icy and hazardous. Not exactly the perfect weather to travel on foot. With all the reindeer in comas until the actual flights on Christmas morning, my options were very limited. Or rather, trying to find a way that could fit my already hectic schedule and one that would convince this child to join me. But before I got a chance to think that over, she started to leave the diner without a coat or even a fourth slice of pie. "Hold on there, where do you think you're going?" I asked as I heard sirens off in the distance. I felt a chill down my dead spine. Was that the Polar Police coming to get me? I would be dead in 2 minutes if their bear patrol snatched me up. "It's a blizzard. I can't stay here. I'm a runaway, remember?" she countered. Maybe I can help with that. Where are you headed?" "Surely not out in this mess," I said nervously. I was imagining giant penguins popping up at any moment to flipper me to death. "Are you some kind of creep?" she snapped. Then she kicked me in the kneecaps and ran away. I fell to the snowy ground and cursed myself as I watched her run off, realizing my chance at stopping this curse was slipping out of my fingers. Maybe I should take my chances with the demon penguins. "Hold it," I snarled as I chased after her, weaving between cars in the parking lot and trying to see where she had left. The blizzard was getting stronger. Winds were blowing away part of my disguise as I saw her struggle to endure the blistering cold. It probably sounds terrible, but I kept praying she would trip, or something would block her path. Maybe a penguin could resuscitate her. Instead, she was waiting for me at a back alley, her own back to the wall as she snapped, her teeth chattering. "Don't come closer, I'll make sure this is a Christmas you don't forget," she said as she whipped out a can of mace. I didn't have the heart to admit that I had been dealing with far worse since before her generation existed, and that mace would probably make me cry tears of joy. It warmed my little dead heart to see that she was defending herself so poorly. To be honest, her whole concept of escape was a bit ridiculous, and it made me skeptical that she had a plan at all. "I told you I can help. Let me at least make an offer," I suggested. She hesitated. I needed to pitch a good plan right now, or she would slip away forever. "You hate your parents, right? That's why you're running away? Well, I can get you to Santa Claus and you can ask for new parents. I know him real well," I told her. "You must think I'm a complete idiot," Isabella snarled as she started to run past me. "Hey," I shouted, as I kept moving to grab her. My costume fell off completely, and I collapsed in the snow. "Shit!" I spouted, as I spat up some blood. The girl turned around and saw me in my true form. Immediately, she ran up to me and kicked me in the nose. "You don't work for Santa. You're a rotten old goblin. You're with the IRS, aren't you?" "Listen, kid, all I want to do is kidnap you. Can't you at least cooperate?" I snapped back. "Kidnap me? Isn't that like the opposite of running away?" she asked as she kicked more dirt in my face. "Will you please stop doing that and let me explain?" I said as my entire getup fell away. The jig was up and my true fairy form was seen. I was lucky no one else was around or my wings would be clipped. And to be honest, this girl was so fierce that she was starting to scare me. She could probably take me down if she wanted to. "This is your last chance, troll boy, or I will make you eat mud pies, and it better be the truth," Isabella warned. "Look, Santa said he wants a kid for Christmas to show all the presents and toys early. You can judge and see if the toys are good enough for all the boys and girls around the world," I said. Okay, so that was a bald-faced lie, but I was tired of having to chase this kid and worried I wouldn't find another willing victim. "Huh, that sounds pretty cool. Why do you need to kidnap me then?" Isabella asked skeptically. "Because Santa wanted it to be a surprise. You aren't supposed to know until we get there," I told her. She seemed to mull it over for a few seconds before spitting on her hand and extending it out to me. "Only shake if you're telling the truth." I despised the idea of having to touch a germy human hand, but I simply had no choice. Once we finished making the pact, Isabella looked about and said, "So, how'd you get here then? One of the reindeer?" "Uber," I told her. "Oh, that must be one of the new ones," the child commented. I checked my phone to see if there was anything in the area to give us a lift, but the snowstorm had blocked all reception. "I might know a guy somewhere downtown that could get us where we need to go. Come on." I was going out on a limb here, if I'm being honest, but now that I had a willing kid to offer up and save my sorry meat sack body, I wasn't going to lose it. It was in the bad part of town, run down and dilapidated, trash everywhere and vines growing in between cracks, but I could see that I was right on the money. My old friend did indeed live here. "You sure this guy's safe?" Isabella asked, as she looked around at the used needles and broken bottles. "Larry's a top-notch dentist. He can get us the transportation we need," I told her as I knocked on the door. "Whoa, I'm scared of dentists. Why didn't you mention that earlier?" she asked as she started to back away. "Everybody's scared of dentists. It's like the law. But Larry's special. He has connections," I told her. "I don't even know what that means." Then the door flung open and Larry was standing there, drunk as a skunk and high as a kite with tooth necklaces all over his body. "Yo, yo, yo, my old pal FANE. Did you come for another filling?" Larry said, slapping my back and shining his gold teeth to Isabella. "And who might you be?" he asked. "Wait, your friend is the Tooth Fairy? Wait, you're the Tooth Fairy?" she screamed in shock. "What's wrong with him?" I asked as we were taken into the shabby apartment. "I thought Tooth Fairies were all girls," Isabella said softly, as she saw all the variety of tooth memorabilia that Larry kept. It was like looking at a room full of hunting trophies. "I suppose you think all mermaids are men," Larry snipped. "No, that's just silly," the girl responded. I sighed. We need to get to the North Pole, Larry. Can you help us?" He coughed and showed his shark teeth. They looked like they needed a good brushing. "I can, but what exactly is in this for me?" he asked. I knew that Larry was an outcast in Fae society. Nobody wanted to be near him because he was a weirdo, but maybe if I could scam him to help me, I might have a chance. "You know how the elves have been going on and on about equal rights and all that shit? Well, someone put something in Santa's pipe this year, and they want some options for dental coverage. I figured maybe you'd have a few resources to share," I told him. "So you're suggesting that I humiliate myself by offering floss services to penguins and polar bears?" Larry asked. I cringed. So did Isabella. Apparently my idea didn't sound very good after all. Something tells me you aren't exactly telling the full truth about this mission of yours, Larry commented as he poured us some coffee. Or at least, I told myself that's what it was. It smelled like manure. As I drank it and tried not to let my tongue burn off, he added, "Well, that's okay. I figure that my showing up will likely cause so much of a fuss that I don't need any extra incentive." He pulled a lever at the back of the room, and a secret passage opened up behind his gallery of tooth trophies. "Oh, come on then. No rest for the wicked," Larry announced. Isabella sipped her warm coffee and side-eyed me. "Should I be worried this is some kind of racketeering scheme?" she asked. "How do you even know what that is?" I asked back. "I watch CNN. Or my dad does, anyway," she commented. "I guess I need to get used to saying things in the past tense." "You're fairly smart, kid. How old are you?" 7 and 3 months, she said. "And you ran from home because of bad parenting? Is that it?" "Yeah, my parents wanted me to go to Harvard. Bunch of pricks," she said. "Is that why you decided to run away? Too strict?" "Why do you care?" she hissed as we followed Larry down to his car garage. He unveiled the vehicle we were supposed to take, which resembled a giant tube of toothpaste with wheels. "Behold, the Colgate-mobile," he announced. I couldn't believe he was actually proud of this thing. It's certainly something." Isabella actually laughed. "Of course it's toothpaste. This thing's a joke, right? We would stick out like sore thumbs flying around in that thing," she said as she started to do a roll and a handstand. I didn't think it was that funny. In fact, I was panicking. How was I going to make it back to the North Pole in time? "This baby can go from 0 to frosty breath in just 30 seconds. It can get you to the North Pole," Larry explained. He hit the cap near the edge of the tube, and the paste went everywhere, with a low gurgling sound. The entire vehicle lurched forward, and a wheel almost fell off. "Okay, well, she might not look like much, but she's got it where it counts," Larry said as he opened the hatch and told us to get inside. It smelled like mint. As we crawled in, I ducked my head on some more teeth and commented, "You really took this tooth thing to the next level, didn't you?" "I figured I'm trapped here. Might as well enjoy it," he said as he started the engine. It sounded like an old man farting. Isabella chuckled and I sighed. It was going to be a long ride to the North Pole. We didn't quite make it there in one piece. The toothpaste plan went up in farts about an hour away from the destination. Uncle Nick has a safety perimeter, and honestly, I had forgotten about it until the giant gliding toothpaste started to shake and Larry woke up, desperately grabbing the controls to stay on course. "We're gonna crash," Isabella realized. She was right. The ice was coming up to us fast. I acted on instinct and shielded her, as the vehicle crashed into the surface of the North Pole, the shield doing its job all too well to keep unwanted craft out. As I managed to recover, I checked the little girl for injuries and silently cursed myself. I didn't want her to be in any harm now, and it worried me to think I was becoming attached to her. "Get it together, FANE. Your job is to get this girl to the bigwigs." I looked across the frozen wasteland, the bright lights of Santa's workshop off in the distance, as I helped Isabella to her feet. "Are you alright?" I asked. "I've been through worse," she said nervously as I looked for Larry in the wreckage. Our wacky dentist wasn't as lucky. The teeth around his neck had impaled him directly in the face. It made me cringe to see it, and Isabella had to look away. So much for thinking I might be able to use the toothpaste plane again if things went south. But I had to stay focused and grabbed Isabella's hand, moving towards the main workshop that was in front of us. "You'll be fine," I told her as we kept moving. It was so cold my entire body shook, and I was starting to realize I was already feeling the effects of this deadly curse. How the heck did humans handle this all the time, I thought. All I could think about was trading Isabella for my immortality again. But some part of me was feeling guilty. Was it right to bring this sweet, innocent girl that had gone through so much to the slaughter? In reality, I was starting to think that there was something wrong with me mentally. I shouldn't care about this human, I thought as we got closer to the workshop. We were only about 500 meters away when Isabella got stiff. Winged reindeer stared at us across a river. "They can smell fear," I told her, as we pushed past Magic Woods and the reindeer began to follow. I knew they likely hadn't eaten in weeks, perhaps months if Santa had waited just to get them lean for Christmas. That's just great, because I think I feel like I need to piss myself. Those things are huge," Isabella snapped at me. The reindeer were almost right on top of us, their jaws dripping with saliva as I realized they wouldn't hesitate to devour us as fodder. "Okay, on the count of 3, we are gonna run," I said as we stepped backwards towards a frozen lake. 1, 2, and then she bolted across the ice without waiting for me. Immediately, the reindeer plowed past me and started toward the girl. "Shit, are you serious?" I shouted as I crawled back up and tried my best to imitate a female reindeer call. Anything to distract them. But these starved creatures weren't going to be so easy to sway. Isabella was not very meaty, but with them being so hungry, I doubted it made a difference. I whistled as loud as I could, causing the swarm of deer to run towards me as I shook my fat belly towards them. "Don't you want some of this instead, you mangy mooses?" I paused, trying to remember what the plural of moose was, for just a second as they slammed their hooves down on the ice and it started to crack. And then, I had a horrible idea of how to keep Isabella safe. I started to jump up and down on the frozen lake, the fracture growing stronger by the second as I did. The hooves of the heavy reindeer weren't helping either, and a moment later the ice began to break. Altogether, me and the Christmas caravan fell into the chilling waters below. I saw Dasher, Dancer, Prancer, and Vixen flail their hooved feet, frantic to escape as they plunged into the water, their wings becoming frozen solid as they even tried to fly away. Comet and Cupid were circling each other, trying to create some kind of whirlwind as I kept sinking, thinking to myself, this was how I was going to die. Frozen in ice trying to remember the names of Santa's pets. Then, I felt a hand grab at me, and I was pulled up. I flopped onto the frozen surface of the lake, like a fish out of water, and gasped for breath. It was Isabella. She had rescued me. I was surprised by her thoughtfulness, but didn't want to show it. Jesus Christ. Next time don't take so long. I have icicles in my lungs now. Oh, sure. Next time you could drown, she said, as she saw the other reindeer fly towards the main tower of the North Pole. Where are they going? She asked. Reporting to Santa. Won't be long till they know we're here, I commented as we left the icy lake and circled towards the workshop. I thought you were supposed to be here, the child asked. I bit down on my tongue, feeling guilty for leading her into a trap. Listen, Bella, about that. But I never got to say another word. Suddenly a trap sprung under our feet, and we found ourselves in a net dangling upside down, as elves laughed and snickered from the forest.
Fane, looks like you made it almost in time for the annual Christmas Eve party,
the head elf commented as he eyed Isabella.
And you brought the main course. So, that's what Santa meant when he said you were on special assignment,
the elf commented as we were lowered down. Immediately, a dozen knives surrounded Isabella and kept her from wriggling away. I saw panic and fear in her eyes, along with something else. Betrayal. Fane, what's going on? What are they talking about? She asked frantically. I didn't even look her in the eye as the elves hauled her away towards the workshop. The head elf slapped my back heartily. I don't know why people enjoy doing that so much.
Relax, she won't be squealing for much longer,
he said, and then gave me a ticket to the express to get to Christmas Square.
You better go report to Santa how well you did. I'm sure he'll be proud, he said.
I looked down at my ticket, realizing this was my chance to get back to a normal life for myself. Krampus and Santa would both stop bothering me for good, and I could be immortal again. Then, I looked toward the workshop and crumpled up my ticket. This wasn't right. I could feel it in my fey toes. I went ahead and boarded the train, though, taking it quickly to the main plaza, Hundreds of elves were already there, cheering excitedly to worship Santa as they finished their year-long labor. Santa was drunk on eggnog and forcing them to sing as I arrived. I was scanning the crowd for a sign of Isabella. She had to be here somewhere. I knew they wouldn't sacrifice her to the tree until after the Eve party. Then I spotted her, right there on the main platform alongside Granny Krampus. It looked like the little girl had been crying. The elves were all cheering, eager for the ceremony to begin.
I want to thank everyone for their hard work this year. It's truly been a crazy Christmas, hasn't it?
Santa said with a belly laugh.
And let's hear it from my nephew FANE, who braved the human world just to get us a fresh child,
Granny Kramps announced, even as I tried to sneak toward the stage. A massive spotlight from the top of the tree came down and focused on me, causing me to freeze in my progress and wave nervously to my two relatives.
Don't be shy, FANE. Come on up here,
Santa said, as I was led to the steps. I started to wave towards the crowd, as they cheered and stuck me right next to Isabella. Boy, if looks could kill, I knew this girl would kick me in the nuts.
Christmases from now, others will hear of your story and realize that Fae aren't so bad after all. You'll be famous,
Uncle Nick announced, as he turned towards the girl and offered me a cutting knife. At the same time, the other reindeer that hadn't already been cloned from the icy lake came down with a sleigh filled with toys. Santa was about to leave.
And now, as is tradition, we ask you to offer this child up to the tree god and make this Christmas a bright one.
I knew what I was expected to do. I could see the girl trembling, ready to face her own demise. She didn't expect anything else but more betrayal from me. The elves were chanting my name. It felt good to be recognized and respected. But this wasn't how I wanted to spend my Christmas. I raised the weapon up. Bella closed her eyes. And then I slashed the knife across her bonds. The ropes fell down and I grabbed her hand, racing from the stage to the sleigh. There was utter confusion as I shoved her into the passenger seat and pulled on the reins. The deer shook and neighed as Santa was calling for his elves to stop us. Then the sleigh lifted up and about half of the toys fell off, cascading across the crowd like miniature bombs.
You saved me,
Isabella asked, stunned by my sudden change in decision. Then she hugged me tight.
Don't start getting mushy. I'm sure I will likely regret this tomorrow,
I said with a sigh. Then I heard what sounded like a rocket. It was actually an elf missile. It struck the side of the sleigh, and I struggled to keep it in the air.
Wait, would Santa really crash his own sleigh just to get revenge?
Bella asked. Another missile hit the side again, and more toys toppled over the side.
I think we're about to find out,
I realized, as the deer broke loose and the wooden sleigh crashed headfirst into the workshop. Thanks to our seatbelts, we didn't go flying, but the entire sleigh was broken into shattered pieces of wood everywhere across the workshop. A moment later, I was surrounded by elves, along with an angry Uncle Nick, standing at the edge of the workshop.
What is the meaning of this, FANE?
He bellowed.
Leave the girl alone. I've changed my mind and decided to be banished. It's better than being your lackey 24/7,
I decided. The fat man laughed so hard it made the workshop shake.
I can't just let you leave. You've made me look like a fool. I'm sorry, FANE, but the only way out of here is through me.
Then he took out a large candy cane and used it as a weapon, pointing it towards me. I grabbed a smaller candy cane to defend myself, and told Bella to get down and stay out of the way.
Rip him to shreds, Santa,
Granny Krampus shouted. A bell rang out in the distance, and Uncle Nick smiled.
You're lucky that I'll have to make this quick.
For the first time in my life, I was glad that I wasn't very fat. I used my nimble form to avoid Santa's blow and begin the fight. The elves kept a tight circle around us as we parried with our candy canes back and forth, the massive bits of candy striking each other like fencing weapons. This continued for another few minutes, the same jabs and parries towards each other. I felt dizzy as I stabbed at his belly, trying to find a weak spot, but it was like stabbing at jello. My heart dropped as I realized maybe Santa was as immortal as God himself. Could he even be stopped? As we fought, the battle moved towards the square again, the crowd pushing us towards the tree. I tried to spot where Bella had hidden, but it was hard to notice anything in the wave of elves. Distracted for a moment, Santa kicked me towards the tree and snapped,
"If Bella won't be a sacrifice, then I guess we can use you."
He pinned me down as a bell rang across the Christmas square. The giant tree was starting to come to life. Last year, I would have said that seeing this was a sign of reliance on the process and a blessing of our North Pole. Now, as it widened its giant mouth and started to snarl and drool, all I could feel was dread.
"Come on, FANE, get up and fight,"
Krampus shouted. "Whose side are you on?" I asked frantically as I ran around to the backside of the tree.
"Technically, I bet on both of you,"
Krampus shouted. I had to think fast or would become wood chow. My options were limited, so I started to climb, thinking that staying on its back would keep me safe. The tree started to scream and shake and try to get me off, angry and hungry for its annual meal. Then I looked towards Santa, and I had an idea. Jumping from the tree, I stood right in front of my uncle and shouted at the tree. "Come and eat me, you big old redwood," I shouted. The tree roared and moved toward me, moving at lightning speed to devour me. At the last second, I dropped and rolled to the side, as Uncle Nick was swallowed up. In the next few moments, the entire square went quiet. The tree was still chewing on Santa, his belly laugh turning to screams of pain as the tree straightened up and reverted to its original form. Krampus was the first to talk.
You killed Santa Claus."
I swear, it felt like I was either going to be trampled or dunked with Gatorade like a football coach. Then the elves started to cheer, and I realized it was thankfully the latter.
All hail FANE! The wicked Santa is dead!
Bella was brought up and hugged me tight, punching me in the gut and saying, "Don't ever do anything that stupid again." I smirked and tried to figure out what I had just done.
"Can't make any guarantees, kid."
That Christmas Eve, we partied alongside Krampus and the elves. With Santa dead, Granny said that a lot was going to change.
"Christmas will still happen. We can have better service around here. Maybe even a new sporting center,"
they commented. Krampus also had to break the bad news that the curse given to me was not going to go away.
"Sadly, Santa was the only one who knew the way to undo it. And, well, he's lumber fodder now."
"Yeah, that's fine. I think I'd rather go live in the human world anyway," I told them. At the gift exchange, I offered Isabella an apology with a doll. "Is that supposed to be for me?" she asked. "That's the least I can do." "Kinda is." "No, it's pathetic," she said, tossing it aside. Then she grabbed my hand and said, "Can we just go home now?" It struck me as amazing that this child would want anything to do with me, given what I had just put her through. But it warmed what little bits of heart I still had. So, now I'm her adoptive guardian, and we live in a small town outside of Michigan. I look like a human now completely, thanks to the curse taking full effect. And I work as a department store Santa, part-time, just like before. Except this time I tell the kids that I killed Santa. That always gets a few ugly looks. There isn't much more to tell about the story, except maybe that I got Krampus to go visit Isabella's original family, give them a gift for their mistreatment of her, and thanks for letting me realize that the human world isn't so bad. I think they are now roasting in Aunt Lucy's house, and their screams help me sleep at night. It's gonna be hard to top that Christmas gift, huh? I told her with a chuckle. She mulled it over and smirked wickedly. Well, there were a few bullies back in school I need to visit too. Become a channel member today for early access, bonus videos, and special emojis only available to members. Check out the description below or click the join button for more info. If you'd like another way to help support the channel, please consider joining my Patreon page at patreon.com/Jordan Group Horror. As a patron, you'll get access to bonus videos and content. You'll be credited at the end of every video going forward. And if you decide to stay for 3 months, I'll name a character after you, which will be featured in a Hollow's End story. Links to join the Patreon are in the description. Thanks everyone for listening. Please like, subscribe, and comment to help the channel continue to grow. And see you again next time at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Hope you have a great night.